We're
Oh,
live.
we're
Well,
live. Hello.
so I was telling you earlier, often like it's kind of a weird time to go live in the middle of the week, like at noon, for people on a work day. So often there aren't that many people actually coming live, but people watch in the replay and people submitted questions for you. And like you've been on the YouTube show before, and we were very much more intentional about like what the topic was and what you were going to teach people, kind of thing. These have been more just like casual chats, and they've turned into just like what I want to talk to you about, and people just get to witness it, and we just get to like talk and stuff. But people like really want to know side hustle stuff. So I think that's what we're going to talk about anyway, which
Perfect. That's like all I know. So
that's
fire
not
away.
true.
Open book. I'll share anything, everything.
Okay, well, before that, like I'm going to pull them up on my phone, but before that, can you like tell people who you are and how this side hustle coach came to be?
The
Because
whole skinny of how I
yeah,
stumbled into this.
yeah.
Okay, for sure. So elevator pitch. My name is Scotty Russell. I'm coach. I am a speaker, podcaster, Side Hustlers Perspective Podcast, formerly Perspective Podcast. And I had built my side hustle under this name, Perspective Collective. It's kind of like the artist identity. But since I've become a coach over the years, so the art is still there. It's just not as prevalent because other opportunities, things that I enjoyed more, like the coaching side, ended up taking place. But it's so random how it all started. Like first it started me just being a closet artist my entire life, and finally getting the guts to start sharing my work in college. Like a buddy stumbled across my stack of sketchbooks. Like I didn't share it with anywhere. And I was terrified to share my work online. So that was like the first hurdle. And then sharing my work, started gaining traction. I found Instagram early and started building an audience over there under the name Perspective Collective. I went the abstract route. So if you didn't know who Perspective Collective was, you wouldn't know me. And then if you didn't like my work, you didn't have to like me, and you didn't know who I was. So, but over the years, like that turned into blogging, then that turned into public speaking, that turned into teaching workshops, that turned into freelance, that turned into podcasting. And somehow that landed into coaching. And at first, for the longest time, I didn't want people to know I had a day job. I didn't think people would take me seriously. But then people started asking, like, what, do you do this full time? Like, I swear you do this full time. I'm like, actually, no, I have a day job. And that's when people were like, whoa, seriously? Like, you've been speaking at these places, doing these things. And so then they started asking me, like, how do you make time to do this? Or like, how do you grow an online audience? How do you wake up early to do these things? How do you have a routine? And I'm like, wow, these are all the things from my sports backgrounds, all this stuff that has just molded me to who I am. I'm like, okay, maybe I can like talk on this. And then I would talk about it in the podcast, and then people just nonstop would hit me up and be like, hey, can I pick your brain on a Skype call when Skype was like the thing then? So I was getting hit up for Skype calls daily, and I would take them on. I would be in people's DMs. I would just talk to people all the time. And then it got to the point my kid was born. I'm like, dude, I can't do freelance right now. I can't do my online merch shop. But what I do have here is tons of people wanting to talk to me. What do I turn this into? Because I can't scale this. And so I offered 5 sessions at the beginning of 2019. I'm like, I want to pursue this coaching route. I was a coach in football. Once I blew my back out playing college ball, I was personal trainer. So I've always had that kind of guiding consulting role, I guess. And I sold 5 sessions for $100. Didn't think anybody was going to sell them. I announced it on the podcast, and they like were gone within 10 minutes. People all over the world. It was like, wow, how do I scale this? Like, what am I doing here? I have no idea what I'm doing. It's totally stumbled into it. And then I brought on a coach who helped me create my first coaching program later in the year. And I was scared to give up freelance. I was scared to give up my online merch, because those were my breadwinners for side hustle income. I think 2018, I made 15 to 20,000 between freelance and merch, which is pretty decent for side hustle. And then what was it? September of 2019, I spent like that whole summer building up this coaching program. 10 people, $2,000 per person. My coach was like, you should charge more than that. I was like, I was going to charge $200 per person for a 3-month program. She's like, no, you'll regret it. And so I did 2,000. I felt gross, and I made $20,000 in a week. I'm like, whoa, like something's going on here. Like what I didn't take myself seriously, but I also had a really poor relationship with money growing up. Just money was already always hard to come by. I had poor spending habits. But this just rocked me. I'm like, wow. And then I was able to create more impact than I ever had before. All those years I was just nurturing and giving value, sharing what I knew, teaching what I knew, like not asking for anything in return. I built up this reciprocity and people wanted to learn from me. And then I lost my safe day job in November 2019 after finding out kiddo number 2 was on the way. We doubled our mortgage, closed on this house. I got a big raise at my day job, making $61K as a UI UX senior designer. And then like 2 weeks after all of that, I lost my job. Like they rug pulled our entire marketing team. So it was like, okay, do I go and look for another UI UX job, which I was about to, but my portfolio was trash. I hated the work I did at my day job, so I never showed it. Do I go full-time freelance? And I didn't have client work for over a year. So that wasn't an option either. And then, hey, this coaching thing worked. I just proved I can make money. There's demand. So I'm like, okay, I got another coaching program I can ramp up here. I started going the full-time freelance or looking for an agency job. I built a whole portfolio from scratch. I made like 4 fake brands to show my custom illustration, lettering, and branding. And I went with my gut, made the coaching launch, and then things exploded despite a pandemic, despite a kiddo number 2, despite a doubled mortgage. Like I made $30,000 in 2019 as a side hustle. And then I blew it up to like 125,000 in my first year of self-employment through a pandemic. Like it's pretty wild. So that's the long drawn out. That's not really a skinny, but it's been a really wild ride for sure. None of this was planned. This was not the direction. I thought I was going to be a big time freelancer chasing clients like Google and Nike, because that's what everyone else was doing. And then I would have like the merch on the side, like the Draplin. I thought that was the route I was supposed to take. And then that route was just so unfulfilling.
Yeah, but you, sorry if you hear a bunch of noise in the background. I'm recording in my sunroom because my neighbors are doing construction.
I saw that. So I got my kids running up and downstairs, and I got my cat purring loudly. I'm not sure if she's picking up on the mic right now, but
I was gonna say, like you were kind of talking like, well, I don't know, I guess there's demand for it, and it's like, well, yeah, there's demand for it, but it's also that the demand is for you because you successfully did the thing that people want to do, which is the side hustle.
How to turn a side hustle to a main hustle. I'm
yes.
like, okay, there's the value prop.
There you go. And like so many people, aren't built for intuitively knowing how to run a successful side hustle. Like and like most people aren't. You don't just wake up and know how to do it. You have to learn how to do it. And some people just aren't as like you figured out a lot of it on your own and you're a very scrappy person, but like some people just want a step-by-step, like someone to tell them what to do. And so
and I get that. Like, and I'm a coach who will always have a coach.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it. I like having, like, I believe there's no like cheat codes. There's no shortcuts in the game aside from community, masterminds, coaches, and mentors. You know, to me, those are the only cheat codes. None of this overnight, like, here's a course that'll help you get 10,000 followers in a week, or viral TikTok overnight. Yeah. I would say in the beginning, though, it was definitely scrappy. Like no one was teaching me copywriting. No one was telling me to go read these time management, project management books or digital marketing, anything. Like I didn't learn any of this in school.
No, you figured out how to do that yourself and you did it and made it work. Mm-hmm. So I know you're saying there's no, there's no magic pill. There's no like one piece of advice that's going to make somebody successful at side hustling, but we did get a lot of questions about side hustling. So I think
fire away.
The main one, which is, I feel like this is going to open up a can of worms and then this is going to take over the whole call, but we'll try to get to all of them, is just Winnie, who is actually one of the mentors in my Show Me Your Drills program. She said, any advice on how to better balance a side hustle with an increasingly time consuming day job? Which is like, that's a big topic.
Right. I get it. So I want to know more context wise, not having here, like what's in increasing, like, are you working more than a 40-hour work week? Like, is there, what's the word I'm looking for? Not constraints, but boundaries. Are you able to set boundaries? Because a lot of students that I work with too, they're like, man, I just work and then I go home and I feel like I have to stay active on there. I feel like I have to be in the Slack all day. I'm like, you can have boundaries. If you get paid for 40 hours and you're working more than 40 hours, like that's stealing on their end. And that's like you robbing yourself of what you want to do. So without having context, I'd be like, so what does what does that mean? Like increasing role, is that more than 40 hours or what? Like expected? Are you a salary and got to work 60 and only get paid for 40? But for me, so when things like really started picking up at the day job, this is what worked for me. I'm not saying for everyone else, but I'm glad I got into this routine early, because when kids came around, like this is what changed the game for me when I was doing the day job still. But what changed the game for me was being an early bird. Like that changed everything. So I hear a lot of, man, I go to work at like 8, 9 o'clock. And by the time I come home, I'm just so tired. My day job's so draining. I'm like, what time do you go to bed? Like midnight, 1, 2. I'm like, what time do you get up? Like 30 minutes before I got to go to work. I'm like, oh, it's 11:11 my end. Ooh, make a wish. But for me, it was like, okay, something's got to give. I don't remember where I heard this, but I had a buddy who was experiencing insane success waking up early. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. I started getting up like maybe 15, 20 minutes earlier, then kept increasing it. So I had to be at my day job by 7 a.m. and I was getting up at like 4:30 and just grinding. And that's how I built that whole coaching program. That's how I built any kind of product that I put out. That's how I did the podcast. Like that's how I got freelance. When I had murals, I'd go early in the morning. I would go crush working on this mural at a local business before I went to work. And then I'd go in early on the weekends before they had to like open up at 9 or 10. So early mornings changed the game for me. It eliminates the excuse of I'm too worn out by the end of the day to go do anything for myself. And also, most importantly, when you wake up early, you make your dream a priority. You make you a non-negotiable. You put your dream first before you go and clock in on someone else's. And once I heard that radically just shifted how I approach it. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a night owl by default too. But the most important work that moves my business forward requires the most willpower. And that's writing. Like I'm a copywriter at the end of the day versus an artist. So my best writing is done in the morning when I have my highest willpower. The world hasn't woken up to throw its problems on me yet. I haven't clocked in at the day job and dealt with everybody else's stress. So early morning and lunch breaks, like lunch breaks were sacred for me. If I couldn't go home, I lived really close, then I was like locking down a conference meeting room and I was grinding. I had my laptop, I'd have my iPad. I get 2 10-minute breaks during the day. And during those, I'm like getting back to people, doing thumbnail concepts for sketches. Yeah, I was great starting email outlines, podcast outlines really, really quick. So I was leveraging those little pockets of time during the day where I normally would have just been mindlessly scrolling on my phone and then waking up early. So I would say, depends on what time you get up. I'm not saying everybody, I'm a way more bigger advocate for self-care and wellness and sleep these days versus the old me who was like grind. You know, I'm healthy hustle now instead of like sleep when you're dead kind of person. Yeah. My trainer has really woke me up on sleep. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what worked for me when my day job roles just kept getting bigger and expanding. It's like, what are those little pockets of time in the day? And then when I had kiddos, I was like, I already mastered the morning grind. I already mastered my lunch break. So nothing changed.
Yeah.
Nothing changed.
I would second all of that. I feel like we've talked about this before, maybe on our last YouTube.
You were an early morning grinder too, right?
I was, yeah. And same thing as you, I'm now more of like a healthy hustle person. I'm like really trying to my new favorite saying is do and be. I'm like doodling that everywhere right now. Just like reminding myself to do a lot, but also just be like, just like
mine is rest and recharge, but don't retreat. You know, because there's always like, rest, but don't quit. But I'm like, rest, recharge, don't retreat. Like, just don't I'm playing the longevity game right now. It's the typical, this is a marathon, not a sprint. That's what a side hustle is. But I think from the outside looking in, we see people crushing it. And we're like, I want that success right now. I'm comparing my beginning to someone else's middle.
Yes.
And what I preach so much, this is a slow and steady grind. If you really enjoy doing this, it's something you're good at. It's something you enjoy. Don't worry about the monetization part in the beginning. Don't worry about where the demand, don't worry about what the value you provide is. Like, truly figure out basis is, what am I really good at or desire to be great at? And what is something I truly enjoy that lights me up? If money wasn't an issue, I'd be doing this anyway. Then how can you overlap those two? And to me, that's just like the foundation that purposeful play is built on. And there's a huge theme on majority of the guests that I bring on my podcast. they all have the same story. They've all blown up from like some type of personal project that they just made time to do because it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And like so many people
and
feel like they have to monetize it right away in order to chase clout and be successful. I'm like, you don't.
yeah, but and like what you just said was like they
Nurtured it.
Yeah, but they did it because they wanted to. And we were just talking about having to get up at like 4 a.m. and do this stuff. And you're not going to want to do that. And so like the more you actually enjoy what you're doing, the easier that's going to be. But if you're trying to wake up at 4 a.m. and like hustle to get something done just because you think it's going to make you a little bit of extra side hustle money, it's going to be very, very hard. You have to actually want to do what you're doing.
A lot of people just miss the most core ingredient part of all this. Is like, you need to have something you're excited to roll out of bed and work on each day. And so many people are missing that because they're worried about the external results of the followers, the money, the clients, the vanity metrics, the accolades, and they're not doing the internal work, like the personal development. What is it that you want? What makes you tick? What's your psychological psychographics? Like I remember you were like reading a chapter out of Seth Godin's book every day. Like you put the personal development, investing in yourself first, the mindset, all of that. Those are like the building blocks, the foundation, the internal work that leads to the external results. But so many people want to bypass the internal work, the personal development, investing in yourself, breeding a professional mindset instead of operating like a hobbyist doing stuff when it's inconvenient. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really want to drill into my students' heads or whoever's listening to my podcast. I'm like, man, there's just this work, the internal work. You can't go from riding a tricycle to being on a Harley right away. You know, like there's a moped in between there. There's some kind of scooter. There's some kind of motorized scooter.
Accidents. There's and then you get better protective gear for the next.
There's lots of training in there, and maintenance, and need to learn how to like work certain things. Like this could be a good podcast episode analogy on its own. Noted. That should be something, but yeah, it's a slow and steady grind. That's the philosophy I teach: slow and steady grind, leverage your day job to fuel your dream job. Like those are the two principles, philosophies that I preach.
When I had a full-time job, I was doing exactly the same thing as you. I was getting up at not 4:30. That's a little bit crazy, but I didn't have to be at the office until 8. So I would get up at 5, work for a few hours. Like you can get a lot done. And then I also lived close to the office, and I would go home and make an Instagram post at lunch. Like I'd film me doing something artistic and then post that. And then I would come home and work on it. And most weekends I did too. And like, yeah, looking back on it, you can say, I could say now like, oh, I should have been more mindful of like, not hustling till like grinding too hard, but you do have to do that. Like there's definitely a balance where you need to make sure you're not killing yourself, because at that, like, why kill yourself for this? Then what are you going to get from it? Nothing if you're dead, which is like extreme. But at the same time, like you can't just assume that thinking about things and learning about things is going to build a business for you. Like you have to be able to do both. You have to hustle and learn and take care of yourself for it to like perfectly make this thing that you're actually happy building and happy with the outcome of.
I'm a big believer in action reveals answers. And so many people spend so much time like preparing, planning, making checklists, writing their calendar, their to-dos, their plans. Here's what Q1 would be like. Here's my goals. Here's my targets. All that's super dope, but it doesn't mean a damn thing if you're not in the trenches, making moves, taking actions, failing, experimenting, like putting yourself in the arena. None of that planning, prepping, big picture stuff means anything. So
my favorite one is
people are scared to take action because it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I remember someone saying this to me, like at the time when, when you're starting a side hustle and there's so many different things you could do. It's like, should I make my website, or should I focus on Instagram, or should I be on TikTok? Should I like make business cards? Should I go to these weird business meetings in my city? Should I like, how do I market myself? Like what, all the things you can't decide upon. And I remember somebody saying to me, just like, what is the next right move? Don't think about 20 ahead. Don't think about like what this is going to turn into later. Just be like, what is the next right move? And constantly thinking about the next one thing you can do.
Yep.
And putting one foot in front of the other and doing
huge
it.
Book recommendation. The One Thing, Gary Keller, that book has changed my life. That is a staple yearly read for me. And that is one like I'll gift my students or highly recommend to anyone. Then put in essentialism on top of that. But like The One Thing has been one big game changer for me. It made me realize like that my New Year's habit each year, because I don't like resolutions, they're too flaky. Like my New Year's habit, I'm trying to like build habits here, not have good intentions to do something and it was a resolution, but I didn't resolute it. So mine's always do less but better, because I'm like so good. Here's unsolicited side hustle tip advice: do less but better. To me, when I get anxiety, I deal with anxiety every day. Now, I've been in the ER from panic attacks, thinking I was dying. And typically now when I feel the most overwhelm or anxiety stems from me doing too much. Like this month, I'm doing too much. I didn't account for margin. Like today, I had to have my mom come here to watch my kids for an hour because my daycare provider was sick. And then my daughter was sick earlier in the week. And then my daycare provider was out last week. And I'm so busy with like 3 massive things somehow all overlapping at once. And these are just things I need to learn from and get better from and do less but better. Like I'm not going to do this to myself again. I am not going to be pulling all-nighters anymore like I used to do for launches and stuff. Like no more. But each year it's like, okay, what can I say no to? What can I eliminate, delegate, or get rid of completely? Like, I guess that's the same thing as eliminate, delegate, or push to the back burner. Just push to the back burner until I can get to it. Like it's a B task. It's a C task. It's not an A that's an urgent attack that moves my business forward. So it's like, you don't have to do all the things all the time. Like what can you do really, really well and just be awesome at? What can you be the best at in your realm? You don't have to be the best lettering artist out of everyone, but you can just be like the best version of yourself in your lettering during the season. Like how can you just go all in and obsessively become really good at something instead of having the shiny object syndrome? Like, well, I'm going to do lettering for like a 7-day project, but then I'm gonna bounce over here and play the tambourine for a couple days. And then I'm going to go like knit some socks for a season as well. I'm like, dude, if you want to be the shit for a season, like go all in for something. You'll know if you don't like it, if it's not fun, but like give yourself a shot. If you did it for like 7 weeks, a month, 3 months, and it didn't gain traction, it doesn't mean anything. It just means you're still early in the process. Like nobody listened to my podcast in the first 2 years. Nobody read my blog post for the first 2 years. Nobody looked at my Instagram for like the first year when I started, like when I woke up and started drawing again. Nobody paid attention.
What year was the podcast in when we met?
Let's see. So it started in 2016. I think you were probably 2019 and then 2021. Yeah. 2019. What was the question then?
But like what we met at Lewis House's thing, the podcast would have been in year.
Because we met in 2018 then?
Yeah.
2018. So yeah, that would have been celebrating episode 100. Yeah, I would have celebrated episode 100. That would have been year 2.
Okay, well, you just said nobody listened to your podcast for the first 2 years. Well, I did, Scotty. Okay,
so that was just past a little 2 years. So like going into my 3rd year, that would have been that. That's when things started like to click, and I got new branding just around that time too. Like things started going in motion then.
I want to back up a second because you were mentioning books, and I know that you and I have very similar taste in books. And instead of like rattling them all off, do you still have that resource where you like listed all the like courses and books and everything? Can you tell everybody where to go?
Needs a little bit of an updating, but sidehustletoolkit.com. Wait, let me write that down. Side Hustle Freedom Kit. Side Hustle Freedom Toolkit. There we go. Sidehustlefreedomtoolkit.com. That is a mouthful.
I'll put it in the chat.
But yeah, there's like, it's basically like 6 free guides, like 3 exercise, like 1 or 2 or 3 exercises from my best-selling mini course, and like some free Procreate brushes. So, but like one of the guides is like my top book list for personal development, mindset, freelancing, lettering, typography, calligraphy. So yeah, it's pretty loaded. Yeah,
I've seen it and I know people will like it. That's why it like triggered my memory task.
I feel like I need to like update that list because it's been a while, but yeah,
it's still
good. Yeah, all the books that like helped me find my groove in my first 5, 6, 7 years, all on this for sure.
Okay. We've only answered one person's question. And like some of these are obviously like deep questions, but let's try and like just like nail some.
Quick answers. Okay. High level.
Okay. Karen asked, what is your number one tip you give to artists and creatives in regard to staying motivated with social media?
Staying motivated. One, make sure you're having fun. Like, make sure you're vibing to what you put out there. Don't cater what you think people want to see. There's quick 3. 2, start small, start slow. Like, yeah, people are posting like daily out there, but don't feel like you have to get on that frequency right away. Start by just posting like once a week. Master that for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then bake in a second post. Like maybe it's a work in progress of what you're doing. Maybe it's a reels of your process. From there, don't be searching Instagram for your inspiration or whatever it is. Like, get offline. That's going to help you not fly too close to the sun or ripping someone else's stuff off, not get too wrapped up in comparison and being paralyzed to what everyone else is doing. So like, create your work, get some music, get a podcast, whatever it is. Don't source your inspiration from the internet necessarily. That would be like a big tip I wish someone would have said to me. And have fun with it. Gamify it. Like, make a streak. Like, hey, I showed up 7 weeks in a row right now and posting. Track your wins. Make like a little screenshot if someone sends you a really nice message or something like that. Make a little folder, like a little motivation folder. Gamify the situation and make like a routine out of it if possible, just so it becomes a non-negotiable for you versus I'm just going to do it when it feels good, and nobody's liking it in the beginning. So why even do it? I'm like, we're training ourselves early on. We're building habits. And if you could even hope to do your thing full-time one day, doing just a weekly passion project is what's going to help build these muscles for you, these habits, these disciplines, these foundations, these routines, these processes, systems. Like that's the importance of these weekly show up, daily show up kind of things. It's they're setting the tone for how you show up later in the future.
Yeah. I love all those tips. I would definitely like agree with, especially the first one, like do stuff you actually like. Cause especially on Instagram, it's so easy to get into the trap of being like, oh, it seems like these videos of me slowly lettering one word get a lot of likes, but it's like, yeah, but every time I sit down to do it, it feels draining to me. Not sustainable. And then that's going to kill your motivation. And the question was about motivation. So the motivation is going to come when you actually enjoy what you're doing, because it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like, oh, I just like really like this thing I made and I'm really excited to share it.
Yep. And something recently I just added to a podcast 225 is like, motivation comes from the act of doing. Don't wait for motivation to be present. Oftentimes you're just going to be waiting, sitting, twiddling your thumbs. Like, just start taking action. The answers reveal themselves. Like, you'll soon find your groove and get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
So don't wait.
I can count on probably one hand the number of times I've had a day where I'm like, ooh, I feel motivated, just like out of thin air. It just doesn't happen. But you have to just put a pen to a paper and then something comes out and then the motivation.
I didn't feel motivated waking up at 4 a.m. and grinding on podcast outlines. No, but then I get lost in it as I go. So
yeah.
Cool. I like that question.
Okay. What tools do you use to help manage your time?
See, I really like Notion. But I kind of have my own little system. I call it my little creative grind system. I know, like, at the beginning of the week on a Sunday, I know what my main hit list might be. I might even organize that in Notion, but then I like my little, oh my God, my wallet's upstairs. I have a little sketchbook of field notes in it, but then I like list what are my top A tasks each day, B tasks each day, C tasks. But I want someone to start, like, I'm to the point I work full time for myself. I can hit multiple tasks in a day, but someone just getting started and be like, okay, what's like one task a day that you can knock out? So say your main target each week is a weekly podcast episode. Every Wednesday you want to go out. So like, work backwards. So day one, you're probably outlining the podcast. That'd be one big task that day. Second task would be writing it. Third day would be recording. Fourth day would be editing. Fifth day would create artwork. Sixth day would be publish, get it all scheduled. Seventh day, hit live. Yeah. So to me, it'd be like, what's one task a day that you could do that'll get you towards like your weekly output? So
I remember we talked about that too, because at one point my thing would be like, I will put normally 3, like, the tasks I have to complete today. And I don't care if I finish it by noon. if that happens, I'm going to check out, and I'm taking the rest of the day off because I did the 3 things, and I'm not going to feel guilty about not working for the rest of the day. But you were like, I do one, but at the time you had a side hustle. So it's interesting now that you put more than one thing on your task.
Yeah. I usually have my hit list. Here's like maybe 3 to 5 A tasks that if I get this A task done, then I'll hit this one. And if I don't, then I'll go tomorrow.
The task isn't like redo the website. It's like,
no, it's like redo the hero image on the website today.
Redo one paragraph.
Redo my navigation.
They're small.
Yeah. So I may have one massive A task during the season. Like, hey, I am rebranding the podcast episode to Side Hustler's Perspective. So one task would be like, okay, I need to outsource and get this logo done again. I need to create certain assets to update. I need to update the podcast landing page. So each week I just focus on one big task. So here's my main goal. How do I reverse engineer it, break it down, and then just take steps along the way? Can't climb Mount Everest overnight. So make it into little checkpoints.
The being able to check off the main things you put on your list builds the motivation.
Productivity high. And I am an addict when it comes to that. Like, give me. I love checking stuff off my list. I wish I had it. Some people put like really dumb stuff on the list, like do my hair, and I'm like, check. Right.
I'm like, ooh, good for me.
Right. Yeah. I like the feeling of, so like I could do it all in Notion or like old Wonderlist, whatever I used to use. And it doesn't feel the same just checking something off there. Yeah. Feels cool, like moving something to a completed column, but like just the daily act of checking things off manually through a list and then seeing my books fill up. I'm like, yeah, that means I filled up all these books. I did work this year. That's pretty powerful to me. I like that feeling. Yeah.
People laugh at me because I do everything analog still, but I feel like most of the people listening will get it. Mm-hmm. So what is Notions? Is it like a task manager? It's like
Notion's like a free task project manager for sure. So I can I can make my list. I can make inspiration lists instead of having all these sticky notes and sketchbooks and everything filled with ideas. I can just like pull up my Notion, fill everything out. I can see like my current hot list of big projects I'm working on and tie dates and times. So it's like Asana. It's like Reich. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cause I use Asana because my project manager wants to use Asana and that's what she uses. But like, I still end up just like looking at Asana and then writing the things on a physical piece of paper. Yep. That was my checklist anyway.
I get it.
Yeah. She's like, you didn't mark the thing as complete. I'm like, yeah, I did, just on my paper.
Yeah. It's a different endorphin being released when you manually analog check it. You check it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. This could be many things, I think, but we'll see if you have
all the things. Let's get it.
Yeah, a few. Jane asked, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's considering starting a side hustle? What do you wish someone told you when you started? And thank you for making time to have Becca interview you and let us ask questions.
Always. And I will say, if someone didn't get their question answered, or if I went too high level of it, just DM me, email me, and I will respond and we can connect. Mm-hmm. I think I kind of mentioned earlier, I wouldn't be here today had I went all in of like, how do I monetize my art right away on Instagram? How do I monetize my audience, my attention on Instagram? It was never my intent. Like, I haven't made much off my podcast either. I've never gone into this podcast forcing it to be a moneymaker for me. And I feel like that's been a good thing for me. I'm very picky if I ever have a sponsor, like super picky. But for me, it'd be like, find something you really enjoy and mix that with something that you're good at or very driven to be good at. Don't force it to be anything. Make sure it's play. Like, it has to be fun. It has to be purposeful play. And you can tie the intent of, I want to build my audience, but saying I want to grow 10,000 followers this year, there's so much out of your control. Like, what's out of your control is an algorithm. And honestly, maybe your work really sucks ass. So that's just being honest. Sometimes it's just someone's content that sucks. Don't play a victim to the algorithm. Get better, adapt, change, evolve, try different platforms, like always experimenting. I'm in such a lull right now because I'm reinventing myself and experimenting all types of new things, just fiercely experimenting and not caring how many likes I get on something. Like, I care about, okay, man, someone DM me like, damn, dude, this post really hit me today. And I'm like, this got like 32 likes when I used to get like 3,000, but I'm like, nope, I rocked that one person today. So like, that's way more important to me. So as long as you're truly vibing to what you put out there and you're not forcing it to be something, Like you've only been lettering for 30 days and you're super bummed that you haven't got a big feature and you haven't got a client yet. Like that is so unrealistic and not fair to yourself. It's not fair. So I'm all for ambitious goals and dreams, but at the same time, like, yo, slow and steady grind, patience, everything. Every time you post online, you're planting a seed. You're one scroll, swipe, or click away from having a big opportunity. On the other side of an opportunity of the door opening is a person. So relationships are everything. My business has grown because of relationships, putting out work that I vibe to, going with my guts and going against the grain of everything that's ever been taught to me from societal traditional system. I'm like, nah, there's a different way. There's not just one way of doing things. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agree. It's so easy to get caught in the social media trap of like, oh, people don't like this. I guess I shouldn't do it. Even if it was something you like really enjoyed making.
Right. If you really enjoyed it, oh my gosh, it just give it time. Give it time. Like it's what I think Gary Vee posted this and I said something similar, but I liked how he did it versus like, you're not stuck or you don't suck. You're just early in the process. I was like, oh, I needed that. So yeah, you're just early in the process. You don't suck. Your worth is not defined by likes on Instagram. Like, dude, my Instagram has been tanking over this last year since I've made this shift. Instead of showing pretty artwork all the time, like how I built it, I've been showing more mindset, motivation tips, me on real speaking. And the Instagram has just been tanking. I have not been blowing up on social media, but my bank account is going up. The impact I create is going up. The relationships, like it all goes down to my happiness, my sanity. I'm a dad first, health is second, and then my business, and then it's social media, you know? So just because you're not crushing on social media doesn't mean you can't be making big moves behind the scenes in your creative business. So
yeah, cool. Okay, last question. Dory, another one of the mentors in the Show Me Your Drills program. She asked, what kinds of things do you do when you're feeling uninspired creatively?
This is going to go back to like self-care, like walks. Oh my gosh. Like I am a religious walker. My trainer really helped me out. I was scared to leave the computer during the day. I'm like, I'm missing money if I leave my computer, if I even go to the bathroom, like, let me just bring out a porta potty and let me work right here in it. But no, like I go on walks like crazy, like 12,000 steps a day just to like get my mind right. That has been so good for my mental health. At night, I shut down the inner critic by doing nightly meditations. Dude, I'll listen to like some motivational stuff or stuff that helps you breathe. Other times I'm like, I need a sleep story. Like here's Alice in Wonderland. I listened to the Jungle Book last night. It was so dope.
Oh my God, Scotty, if you need the best ever, like to put you to sleep story.
Yeah, I want all of it.
On Insight Timer. It's like a meditation.
That's what I use for, that's where the Jungle Book and everything's at. So
yes. Okay. Maybe it's the same author, but or the same narrator, but it's The Wizard of Oz.
Dude, yes. I'm listening that. Wait, no, it wasn't Jungle Book last night. It was Wizard of Oz. And the Wizard of Oz narrator is the same as the Jungle Book.
Okay, I can't make it further than like 6 minutes.
I have all 6 parts like downloaded in the playlist, and I'll start the playlist from here, and then I'm out. You know, so I have to keep replaying part 1.
It literally took me like a month to get through part 1 because I just had to find the spot I fell asleep last night. And like,
oh, dude, that's so great that you do that. There's a good one on YouTube too of Alice in Wonderland. That one's, I love the author or the narrator on that. But yeah, so like when I'm feeling uninspired, walks, and when I'm just needing to get my mind right and shut off all the noise, the inner critic, it's meditation. Gym is huge for me too. And then switching it up, like if you're not feeling it, like say you're working on a logo and you're just not feeling it, but you got something else you could do, you know, switch it up, go and draw or go do some calligraphy for a little bit. And for me, when I'm feeling like really sad or uninspired, because I do a lot of coaching, I'm on calls all the time, I'm doing a lot of writing, products, whatever it is, I realize when I'm feeling that way, I haven't drawn in a while. And so I have to carve out time to draw. Drawing is what got me here. I don't like drawing for other people. I like drawing for me. Like I'm posting my son's birthday invitation tomorrow, and I carved out time. I had only like 15, 30 minutes at a time to like work on this over a couple weeks span. And I'm like so pumped about it. I had so much fun, and I don't care if anybody likes it when I post it tomorrow. I loved it. And this little nugget, he loved it. So I find like other little outlets to juice me up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we answered all the questions.
All right, cool. I hope there was like one helpful thing somewhere in there.
So many helpful things. I'm in a chat with the mentors in the Show Me Your Drills program, and one of them said, "Are you guys watching this video? It's really good." And then they all started.
Is this
watching.
just all on your Facebook?
Mentors. Well, that was that's in like a private chat, but in the Facebook group, yeah. Sorry, I missed Teresa. Teresa submitted a question at the very beginning, and I was reading the ones that were submitted before, but this is in the live chat. So one more question.
Yeah.
She asked, how do you overcome worry that there isn't enough pieces of the pie for everyone? If the market's oversaturated.
So I get that for sure. I am also a huge believer that there's room for everyone at the table. And there's some people who are just like way too competitive. I think we probably know multiple stories of people who feel like they own one style or medium, and then they want to send cease and desist to everyone else, be like, nope, I own this. No, you don't. But what I want to say is anybody can do calligraphy on a piece of paper. Anybody can do what Becca does. She's just been doing it, and she has a great, she's found her secret sauce. And to me, your secret sauce is like a 3-part recipe. For part 1 is your storytelling and your experiences. Like this is who you are as your identity. Like your story is your most powerful asset. And she brings that into like your multiple sclerosis, and you use that to charity. Like that's a part of your story. Hockey, all this stuff that you share about yourself. That's what makes you unique and why people want to learn from you. Part 2 of your secret sauce is your strengths and your skills, whether inherited or something that you learned and went to school. So like calligraphy, but maybe you're also like a really good musician or this or that. How can you potentially overlap something? Like how can you do something familiar like calligraphy, but in an unfamiliar way? And then the last part ingredient is what I call part 3 is your core ingredients of something that is your passions, your strength, your interests, your passions, your values, beliefs. So some people are like, okay, lots of people are lettering, but I love lettering. I love photography, and oh my gosh, I love The Office. I love watching The Office. So to me, what would make you different? Like, okay, what if you did a huge, cool series of like lettering funny quotes, mocking them up as posters from The Office, and like maybe spitting a fun fact in your captions? To me, that's like, how do you do something familiar in an unfamiliar way? How do you stand up? How do you show yourself in your work? And those are like the dumb little projects that I love helping students tap into. How do we take a little bit of all these different buckets? You're not supposed to show everything. Like I love cats. I love pizza. I love outer space, paranormal, aliens, Game of Thrones. And every once in a while, I'll just like pull from these little buckets and share a little bit about me. And I'm a dad overall, so I talk about my kids a lot. And I love dad jokes and alliterations and silly freestyle rhymes. So I might bust out a silly rhyme on an Instagram reel video, but yet give a helpful tip to creatives why I did it. So it's just all these little weird things. So how can you uniquely be yourself in what you do? Again, like anybody can post a cool static JPEG of a lettering quote, but like, how can you do it differently and show yourself in it? How can you like mock it up on the side of a building, or I don't know, make it look like trails in the sky from an airplane? Like, how can you do something that's different instead of just taking a picture of your sketchbook?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I mean, in terms of like getting hired for things, if you think there's too many people doing murals in your city, for example, and you're like, why would I start trying to get mural jobs when there's 5 other mural artists that have been doing it for longer than me? It's you and your personality. Like the thing about art is no one's is ever going to be the exact same.
Subjective. Yep.
Yeah. And there's always going to be a client who's like, oh, I prefer that one over that one. Like
there was tons of people doing creative based podcasts. In the beginning, I'm like, why should I do this if there's already people with massive followings? Like I by far don't have the biggest audience, biggest listenership. Like there's way bigger juggernauts than me, and that your audience is probably a huge fan of. But if I went into that and let that paralyze me, I wouldn't be here today, because I'm too worried about the potential. What anxiety is, the art of creating problems that don't exist. And if I was so worried about like something being too saturated or too much competition, I would be stuck still hating my day job.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people too, like I'm good at calligraphy and lettering, but I'm not that good. I'm really good at using my skills and my personal like secret sauce, as Scotty likes to say with his pizza analogies. I'm really good at putting that together with my calligraphy and lettering skills.
Yeah,
And
like
that
I could just analyze, I could be on your website and I could be on your Instagram and like have one email up, and within like 5 minutes I could rip it and be like, yo, this is Becca, this is why she wins, you know, on top of the things.
You like, you know, things about me because I'm not just sharing like a picture of a word. I'm sharing like a picture of a word with a story attached to why I like that word, or like, you know, whatever. Like anything like that is going to set you apart. You can't just be posting a word and being like, here's my word of the day. Nobody cares.
If you're just getting started, just get that damn word out. You know, just get it out there. But if you've been in the game for a little bit, you're feeling stagnant, you're plateauing, I'm like, man, it's probably because you're way too much in your comfort zone and you're afraid to shake it up. This is what's always worked. And I always did what's always worked, but man, I just felt flat. And then I changed my handle, I changed my name, and doing way different stuff than what brought me here. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I feel like the value I create is more, and it shows more than just the person who can draw pretty lettering quotes and illustrations. Like I'm way more than that.
I'm seeing lots of thank yous, and this is great, and love it in the chat. So Scotty, thanks for taking time, even though your kids are home with you and you had to get your mom to come over and all the things. It's like,
I'll tap back into dad mode after this. So
it's such a perfect like example of you living what you're talking about. Like you're doing
first.
Yeah.
I freaking love being a dad. Oops, sorry. I told Becca I would keep it clean. Sorry.
It's all good. Okay.
I keep it way more explicit on my side, but still at the end of the day, it's like dad, life, family, wellness. And it's the more you take care of yourself and have your top priorities, like all of it is just going to flow into your creativity and your side hustle. So that's another thing I wish I would have like been told in the beginning.
Okay. Where's the best, like one place for people to go to find you, or the best two, or whatever, just the easiest for people to find you?
sidehustlersperspectivepodcast.com and Coach Scotty Russell on Instagram.
Boom.
Yeah, this was really fun. I'm glad I was able to make this work. Yeah, it was like late last night. I started to text you too and be like, I'm so sorry, because you asked me, like, hey, you for sure down? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm not going to miss this. And then later in the evening, I'm like, hey, no daycare tomorrow. I'm like, I started writing like a 2-sentence paragraph, and then I was like, wait, let me call my mom. So, mom for the win.
Rescue. Love it.
Yep. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you, Dory, Melissa. I see the names in there. Yeah, I appreciate everyone. If you want to connect, just hit me up. So thanks for asking questions.
And everybody have the best sleep tonight listening to that Wizard of Oz sleep.
So good. The dude's like, and the Cowardly Lion was like
the weirdest voice. And it's like, if you really listen to the story, it is a really weird story. Like whoever came up with that was like tripping on acid or something when they
might have done mushrooms or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh my God. I love it. Okay. Scotty, I'll let you go, but thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure this won't be the last time we chat, because this is like our 8th episode of things together we've done.
Something. So, all right. Well, I'll probably talk to you on Monday.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Peace.
Bye.